The book, by the way, is very factual. It took me a long time. I didn't want to name names or what have you. So while that's going on the other side, the insurance industry, independent insurance industry, was undergoing a really difficult time.
You're listening to Kerry Lutz's Financial Survival Network, where you get valuable information you just can't find anywhere else. To thrive in today's trying times, you need the Financial Survival Network, now more than ever. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and get your free newsletter and gift. Financial Survival Network, now more than ever.
And welcome. You are listening to watching the Financial Survival Network. I'm your host, Kerry Lutz. Well, hey, got an interesting guest on now. As he says, most people's worst nightmare is a problem with the IRS and the bank. Jim Masiello, our guest, had both coming after him for tens of millions of dollars. He's widely known, Jim, you are widely known as the founder of insurance giant SIAA, and that's Strategic Insurance Agency Alliance. Thanks for coming on. So after having banks and the IRS come after you and publishing a book about it called Screw You, that's screw like the screw, and you, just the letter U. Writing the book, what do you learn from all your travails with banking and with the IRS?
Well, thanks for having me on, number one. It wasn't a pleasant experience, but just let me set the parameters of the book very briefly. It's really, then I'll go into the detail. But the battles of the banks is going on simultaneously with my work on creating SIAA, which is a national program. What had happened, we did a lot of building offices, residential, whatever. And that was as a side part of it. And the banks, the feds changed the tax code. And it took several years to catch up with us. But when they changed it, they changed, you couldn't take, where you could take losses before you had to convert that to appreciation. So instead of taking a loss in the year that's occurred, now you've got to go 7 years, 5 years. I don't know what would happen to be. So suddenly the banks in New Hampshire, there are 5. And the Resolution Trust, which people will remember, they came in one day, literally, took over all, and they brought the big banks who didn't care anything about New Hampshire or businesses or what have you. They just wrecked the economy in New Hampshire. So one day I started getting these letters demanding, loan balances, performing loan balances. And there was no way out. Banks didn't care about anything. We went to war. Fortunately for me, I've always had very solid accounting and tax advice. And my person at the time, who still is, by the way, he just said, I don't know how you're going to do this, but you're insolvent. So you're insolvent, you can file bankruptcy. A couple things I'm going to have. One is I'm not going to file bankruptcy. Number 2, if I'm insolvent, I can beat the hell out of these banks because they can't get anything. So it sets up a perfect negotiation plot. And it was the book, by the way, is very factual. It took me a long time. I didn't want to name names or what have you. So while that's going on the other side, the insurance industry, independent insurance industry, was undergoing a really difficult time. In our vernacular, we call it hard market. Insurance companies weren't appointing new agents, raising their rates significantly, lowering commissions, and becoming very selective, wanting to play just with a very large regional urban type. So it set up a perfect situation because I'd already been doing it in New England. It's just a matter of picking it up and taking it out on a broader geographic basis, which is what we did very successfully. So I got the banks chasing me. The IRS is a story unto itself, and I'll relay that. And it's the good and the bad, the positive and the negative, and all coming together at one time. It was a very interesting time for me, I tell you. So down the road we marched, and fortunately, I was able to negotiate with the banks. Having done that, I would just tell them, go to hell or screw you. What it's all in the book. There's no mystery. Bankers, you have a tendency to always name an institution like that or, that bank. Well, they're people. And as the feds came into more prominence, these people started displaying their incompetence. So I can't tell you it was fun because it wasn't fun, but there were satisfying moments when I'd meet with banks one-on-one, and I restricted the time that they could contact me. That they had real problems. They took me to court, and by the time we got to court, we were able to get the bank in a very difficult position relative to negotiating. And that's generally the essence of the book. So you got parallel stories that really were occurring at similar time.
All right. So how long did this fight go on for?
2 years, pretty intense.
2 years. Okay. You must have spent a lot in legal fees, huh?
No, you're going in the right direction. I had a former congressman who was an attorney who was a close friend who I had done some things for prior years. I said to him, I said, I'll write my own communications and I'll deal directly with the banks. I'm always going to have you CC or whatever. And I did that. And, it was pretty strong. I mean, I could be in two courts in the same day. One lender looking for a couple $1 million, another lender looking for another amount. It was, as I reflect on it, fortunately, good advice, you can't put a dollar sign on it, because the good advice early on was with my CPA, and he, and also corporate attorney, and they said, you need to put your operating businesses into an irrevocable trust for your family. Well, 4 years, that's when all this happened. So you couldn't get out. My core businesses were doing fine. We were growing them. And the banks and the IRS just became a battle.
Right.
That's probably what you need of that.
Yeah. Interesting. So what about the IRS? How did you deal with them? How did you beat them?
Well, they came. Okay, I don't meet people one-on-one. It's just not my style. So I had my lead counsel and my lead CPA. I gave them powers of attorney to be with the IRS, but the manager of the New Hampshire insisted on meeting. I said, no, go to hell. I don't have to meet. I've got letters of authority with my representatives. One of the members of that accounting firm had been an IRS manager. He called me one day. He said, look, Jim, I know that this isn't anything you want to do, but I think it could be beneficial. I said, so can we meet? Can we meet in your office, in your conference room? We'll limit who can be there. So you can meet this person. And at first I said, I need to think about it. I said, okay, fine. So in my office, this person walks in, the New Hampshire IRS manager. And it was a she, and she came up to me and we shook hands, and she said, Mr. Masiello, I can't tell you, he's dying to meet you. And I was thinking in the back of my head, you're $1.5 million, please to meet me. So she said, I have to tell you, I am so grateful that you would do this for me. Man, this is an IRS agent. You don't know where they're going. Yeah. You are in Phoenix. And as soon as she said Phoenix, it registered. In other words, you may have problems now, but you're going to come back. And when you come back, I'm going to be here with my hand out. That's what a Phoenix is.
Yes.
During the course of the meeting, this person said, well, have you considered filing Chapter 7? Filing Chapter 7. I didn't cause the problem. I will, I'll make these problems go away over time, but I'm not filing Chapter 7. She said, well, that's pretty remarkable, but if you did, half of what you owe would disappear. Now, the person in the CPA firm that I mentioned before, he about went under the table. He just never seen an IRS agent telling someone,
File bankruptcy so you don't have to pay me.
yeah, exactly. That just doesn't happen. So she said, well, she said, I take whatever you tell me, I'm taking it to your word because I know your reputation. So she said, would you agree to $400 a month? No, this is $1.5 million, okay? $400 a month for 10 years. And then I figured it's going to give you 10 years to, whittle away. So for 10 years, paid her $400, paid the IRS $400 a month. Now, do you do the math real quick? It's
$48,000. Yeah.
So now we had about 6 months to go, and my counsel, or he is now he was Horizon at one point, so he's not likely. He had his office check with payment when it is due, Internal Revenue in a roundabout way, inquiry, and they came back and said there is no balance. And he called me. He said, I don't know what's going on. He said, but IRS, you don't owe them anything after 10 years, $48 a year. Well, that certainly isn't anything we're going to argue about. And apparently, what happens is if you do a deal with the IRS, you owe them money, return. They have to go through a process. It's called updating statute on you individually. But also, what they do fraud scam. So they never updated my statute. So at the end of 10 years, we paid them $48,000. I still owe them like about $1.4 million, and it went away.
Wow.
And
that's like the IRS, that country western music song, saying, take me off your mailing list to the IRS, right?
So it was interesting. And they had kind of an overly zealous agent working on us. To the point where I basically told him, go to hell, it won't bother me. Or I
right.
You can't tell the general revenue that. I said, just screw you. All up, and that was the end of that.
All right. So what'd you learn from all this?
I learned I was damn lucky.
Better to be lucky than smart, huh?
Well, people use that word luck a lot, but when you're doing enough stuff, you've got to have some luck somewhere.
Yeah, well, what Thomas Edison said, what some people call luck, I call overall and hard work, right?
That's what it is. Hard work generates luck.
For sure. So people starting out now in similar businesses or in any business, what would you tell a young entrepreneur from your vantage point experience? This is a little difficult. I have to elaborate. I never started. I had my agency, and I wanted to grow it. New Hampshire's a small state, but where I was located, that's 50 miles from civilization. So I had to leave that market and expand. And so, my agency is doing very well. It was a bad time for insurance agencies and companies. Yet my reputation was strong. We were very profitable business, and our companies, when I asked them to do something, they did it because we were one of the few performing organizations. I never started it to cash out. I never started it. That's never my goal, period. Because I think that takes you off course unless you're lucky. Doesn't. I don't know. I started selling life insurance. I worked 7 weeks for PPG, Pittsburgh Plate Glass, out of college, management trainee. This is woman involved too. I impetuously left that one morning. Began the straw hat, back. So I started selling life insurance. As I sold life insurance, other opportunities would arise, and I wouldn't fall into them because an opportunity is it is that an opportunity. You can only utilize it if you're in the right place at the right time. But I got very successful.
If you start trying to start a business, I wouldn't do it today. It has to be the type of business that can get your personality into relation building. That is the key. Very what was relationship. Keep the eye on the ball. Just be persistent. It's really hard to tell, because what I did was kind of opposite. I went against the grain on most stuff, and I loved it because they're difficult situations. I never considered it difficult for 40 years on my desk. And I stood in the middle of every difficulty life. I'm good at it. And I can't tell you the days I would just stare at that plaque.
Yeah.
Stop thing here. Now, what can you do? And it kept me going all those years. So.
All right. Well, James, it's been great having you on the show. We'll have a link in the show notes to your book, Screw You, available on Amazon. If you got a question for James or myself, shoot me an email, kl@kerrylutz.com, and you'll find the link in the show notes to the interview on financialsurvivalnetwork.com. And while you're there, please sign up and get your free newsletter. James, wish you the best of luck on the book, and we'll talk to you again.
Thank you, Kerry.
Thanks for listening to Kerry Lutz's Financial Survival Network, your solution to today's trying times. For the latest, go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com. Financial Survival Network, now more than ever.